What is branding? Well, Webster's dictionary would describe it as the act, I suppose you could say, of heating an iron and jabbing it into your cow's ass. So let's discuss the subject, shall we? Yes, Webster's dictionary does say that branding is to take a hot iron but look, that's not the branding we're talking about. We're going to discuss branding and not just, I was going to say whiskey, but not necessarily just in whiskey. It's good to be back. Feels like ages since I've been here. It's been about, I suppose it was about 6 weeks. I hope everybody can see and hear me well. I'm going to, just before I dive too far into it, I have lit my cabinets, as you can see. It's the bizarrest thing. I should know this by now, that when you light something so strongly behind you, you can't see this here. It maybe doesn't come across to you the way it does to here. But when I put those lights on, and honestly, I think NASA, on the first night that I put them on, NASA were in contact to say that, what the hell's happened in Northern Ireland. It's one of those things that it just detracts from everything else. It's the only thing in the room. So I've now got lights everywhere in the room to try and sort of steal away from this again. It's a little bright. I'm going to have to try and calm it down a bit, and I will try and no electrician. Although I did do this myself, but I need to figure out a way to actually see if there's a way of dimming it down again. I'll do my usual. I'll dip into the chat first, and we'll see who's in, and then we'll get on to tonight's subject, and we'll get some guests in. So Pete head in early doors. Frank, good to see you, my friend. Whiskey and Wine Trails. Whiskey and Wine Trails. Tom is another. We've actually got a couple of new additions to the Highland Battalion, and actually those new additions couldn't make it tonight. Tom's one of them, and he just texted me there moments before I went live to say he was to be at work, but to hell with work. I think he's actually just locked himself in a room with us instead. So Tom, good to see you in, my friend. Let me see. Greg's Whiskey Guide, good to see you. Luna R, not Luna, how are you? Jeff Whiskey, Derek McGrainer, we're scrolling. Matthew Edgeworth, few locals. Whiskey with Molly. Ben couldn't make it in tonight. Ben, I know, very busy man at the minute, but good that you're in the chat. Jimmy Legg, Jimmy, been a lot of chat recently about meetups. We know they're coming, and we know it'll be interesting. Craig Blair, how are you, Craig? Danny Keenan, let me see. I'll actually get into the chat at some point, hopefully, and see what you are saying. Gav's Drams, Andy C, and currently that's us down to the bottom. So there's chat going on, and I'm sure there'll be folk jump in to say stuff, I hope. I really need a drink tonight. So I contacted the rest of sent a message out to the Highlands a while ago and just said that the green room's open. I need a drink. So come on in, we'll have a chat. So I had a bit of a chat, and it was funny because we got talking about branding, and the thing is, it's one of those subjects that I think a lot of you would agree with me has been talked to death to a certain extent. It has been talked to death. We've all discussed branding before. We've banged on about it and how much it doesn't mean anything to us, and etc., etc. And within literally about a minute and a half to 2 minutes, we myself and I think there was another 3 of the Highlands in there, got not heated about it, but there was something all of a sudden that we were just going, but hold on, and it all of a sudden became a subject worth talking about still. So I think it is a worthwhile subject. I was going to talk about branding and marketing. I thought about it, and I'm in my head, branding and marketing are two different things. They do cross over. There's a point where branding and marketing do this, but they also can do this. And so I decided what I'll do is tonight's live stream, April's live stream, branding, May's live stream, marketing. So we'll do it that way. So, and it wasn't, it was weird. And I thought about this maybe 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'll tell you what's in my glass in a moment. And then it was weird. Somebody came into the shop, and you'll hear me mention the shop quite a bit tonight for the simple fact that it's driven a lot of this. So somebody came into the whiskey shop, and it was a chap called Shane Long, I believe his name was. I probably could have Googled this, probably, but no point doing too much research. I think his name was Shane Long, and he was the guy behind this brand, Chieftain Pale Ale, Franciscan Well. And it turned out this was this one caught me a little unawares. He actually was one of the driving he was one of the driving forces behind the Jameson. What was the Jameson cask mates, the IPA and the stout cask, because they were both Franciscan Well casks that they used, that Jameson used. And I think it was actually, this was Shane's idea at the time to go with this. So it sort of blew me away, because I didn't know who this guy was, and he just sort of came in from nowhere, chatting to me, Sarah. I see a few chats coming, or a few mentions in the chat. Yes, it's a good Guinness. I need a Guinness. My iron must be low. Yes. So I get chatting to Shane, completely out of the blue. He said something to me. We were chatting about whiskey, and he likes his whiskey. The man likes his whiskey, and he says, "What do you think of branding and marketing?" And it completely caught me unawares, because it wasn't really to do with what we were talking about. And I said that to him. I paused, took a breath, said, "What do you mean? What do I think?" And he said, "Well, what do you think? That's the question. What do you think of branding and marketing?" And I said, "What, in whiskey?" Yeah. And he says, "Well, yeah, I suppose, yes, in the alcohol industry anyway." And I said, "It means nothing to me. Branding and marketing doesn't matter to me. Whiskey matters to me." And I think I speak for an awful lot of who's here tonight and who's in the chat tonight, etc., when I say that. So this guy said, "I agree. I feel exactly the same." And when he said that, he meant about this brand again, this Chieftain brand from Franciscan Well. He cared about what the beer was like, whatever beers they were making. So what was happening was, he was trying to brand this. He was trying to expand to America. They were trying to get, because let's face it, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your product, if you can make it in America, there's no point beating about the bush with this. If you can make it in America, you're going to do well. You stand a better chance of doing well anyway. Took his brand to America, took Franciscan Well, Chieftain, whichever way you want to put it, to America. And they said, "Now, I'm not sure that this here that I'm showing you, this is new branding. So this wasn't the branding that I'm talking about. This was whatever he had done prior to this." And he took his beer to America to try and sell it, to try and make a name for it. And they said, "We like your beer. We really do like your beer, but your branding won't sell it." And they turned him away. And it amazed me that, and it makes perfect sense. It shouldn't amaze me. It makes absolute sense that it's all right having the product, but if you haven't got the backing or the brand behind it to sell it. In a modern age, it won't sell. I think personally that's the way I think. So I'm gonna take a quick look into the chat, see if anything's been mentioned that I missed. And Greg's saying, yeah, you know, the castmates. There were only two castmates, Greg. There was the stout and the IPA. Now they did do some limited editions with different, but it was outside of Chieftain, I believe. I think they went elsewhere. A lot of people doing it nowadays, isn't there? You know, just they'll move around. So they're not. I don't think there's anything that I've missed. That's so. Well, therefore, I'm gonna start with a brand, and I'm gonna have a small rant before I get my first guest in. I can't. I have to have a rant about this because otherwise it'll annoy me. It's been annoying me anyway. And people know I like to rant about this brand. So why not get it out of the way now? Bushmills. That's a small rant about Bushmills. Just for the crack. And I've picked out a couple of bottles just for the hell of it. Now, something happened in Bushmills this week, and I'm going to mention this first. Let's get the news out of the way, shall we? Bushmills released a couple of bottles, 25-year-old and a 30-year-old, a couple of single malts. And it was, you know, pricing on them is, well, basically, I think the best way to put it is Bushmills are sort of firing all over the place with their pricing. It's just, so that was, they did this. Now, why, personally speaking, why all the bells and whistles at Bushmills? And I can say this because Bushmills don't own me. I like Bushmills. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not owned by a brand, so it doesn't, you know, I can say what I want. Why all the bells and whistles? Why all the accolade for a distillery which basically opened a 37 million pounds extension to their kitchen? That's pretty much the way I looked at what Bushmills did this week. It's all right to say it's a new distillery. It's not. It's a modern distillery extension is what they've done. They've added something to double their capacity. But we won't necessarily see any extra whiskey come from Bushmills because they still depend on their blends. They're still, that's where most of their money is coming from. That's where they're generating money from their blends, from the original, from the red bush, from black bush, which, don't get me wrong, still good blends. They definitely are. But a blend isn't a blend without grain whiskey in it. And where's that grain whiskey coming from? Well, it's not coming from Bushmills. I can tell you that. I actually do know that they changed the contract, and I now know where it is coming from. Well, it's not coming from where it was coming from either. So, you know, as I said, it was just a bit, for me, it was all a bit much, a lot of hype for something that was a bit simple. Anyway, this to me is a good brand. For all that said, I think Bushmills are a good brand. And I think that they can, you know, I think they had a good brand. Sorry, Whiskey with Molly says, Black Bush, send me the best. We know what you're talking about there. Richard Ignews, and evening, Richard. Good to see you, my friend. Bushmills, still a good brand. Now, why then? This is where, once again, they're firing all over the place. This was the Bushmills Distillery Reserve. This is a classic bottle. I think this is an absolute classic bottle, an unmistakable bottle. This shape. And it's one of those things. Sorry, I was just reading Greg. I missed a comment there, and I thought, and Richard knew, yes, Tina. This is not so new about Bushmills, isn't it? Moreover, about Irish high-end bottlings prices, I remember even 20 years ago. Yes, agreed. Greg Right. Classic design, unmistakable. They've changed it. They've done this. Now, don't get me wrong. I really like this. I actually do like this a lot, and it's even got. I only realized this recently. It's got the went with the Giant's Causeway thing, and they've put this shape and all into the bottom of it, and there's things inside it, etc. I like this. I like this. That's all right. But what they've done is they've decided to stay with their blends in this shape of bottle. So there's going to be about a good half a dozen Bushmills whiskies in this shape of bottle. The single malts are now going to come in this shape of bottle. This is actually a 12-year-old. This was released to the American market. I won this actually. I won this through Bushmills, and you know it's average. It's just all right. Then what they've done is this was one of the ones that they have released as this week. This was the 25-year-old, and it's a different bottle again. It's bigger than this. There's more glass on the bottom of it. It's a cork in it that would kill a small domesticated animal, probably quite a large domesticated animal. So it's just, once again, it's just shooting all over the place. Why? I had to have a rant. Bushmills, I don't think know what they're doing at the moment. I really don't. I don't care who I offend whenever I say that. Christopher Malloy, Chris, hi everybody, asking who owns Bushmills. Well, it's Jose Cuervo, but Jose Cuervo are owned by Proximo. So Proximo, as Whiskey with Molly says, is the umbrella company. This is why the likes of Proper 12, etc., is all made at Bushmills now. There you go. Let's bring somebody in, shall we? I had a rant. That's what I'm drinking, by the way. I decided to pour myself a little of that Bushmills 12-year-old. And yeah, it's just all right. It's just all right. It's not great. There's better Bushmills than that. Who will we bring in? First in the line, he was the first one in. Tony, how are you, friend? Caught you unawares there.
All good, thanks you.
Just wait for you to take a drink now. I'll get you in, sure. It's quite funny. I'll tell you what I'll do, just because this will only work one way, really. Let's bring in Nigel as well.
He's totally changed the top there, so he has.
Changed the top.
He's hungry today.
When we were in the green room earlier on, as we like to call it, Tony and Nigel were like twins. They basically were both wearing, and we were almost all three of us wearing McConnell's hoodies this evening, and which, you know, it's all fun and games, boys, but when we're talking about branding,
yeah.
And well, I was going to say there's another reason why we wear McConnell's clothes, but we'll not go there. But right, branding. Let's get on to it.
I'd say it changed to the drum face
instead. Oh, I turned coat. So it's funny because we were talking about this behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden, as I say, it went from it's a tired subject until we said something, and Nigel, it was actually you, Nigel, that said it, and all of a sudden this became still a hot topic. That if you look at a brand that we already know and that we'll happily pay our money because we know it's a good brand, will we just continue to pay our money because we think it's a good brand? Nigel, you said, we were talking about Springbank earlier, who are, let's face it, if we're talking about branding, their branding is probably one of the most dull on the market.
Yeah.
You know, they don't exactly.
It might be dull, but there's still a brand that everybody recognizes within the whiskey industry. Like everybody who drinks Springbank will automatically pick that out wherever it's at.
Yeah.
you know.
But I think most of the branding's done by us, and not even us, the flippers and all the rest of them. You know, they hype it up even more than.
Well, when I think of the word branding, I think of something that you can hang your coat on, you can be sure of. It's something that you're straight away. And as I said, that we were chatting behind the scenes, and as I said about the Nike, the Nike Tech, the Volkswagen VW. These are brands, not necessarily whether we trust them or not. That's up to everybody. But you'll never mistake them. You know that brand as soon as you see it, and their reputation sort of tends to precede them, whoever they may be.
But I think some of them brands are more out to get the people who aren't really interested in whiskey or interested in their product for practical reasons. Because the likes of Nike and whatnot maybe wouldn't be the most practical brand for running and whatnot. But it's more of a fashion thing. Same with whiskey. Like big brands like Bushmills will probably appeal to people who just like wee whiskey every now and again. Whereas the likes of Springbank, it's understated. Sticks out for people who really are into whiskey and enjoy the flavours and getting down into it. So
the other thing to think about it is there's another way of thinking about it here. That I mean, we're brands, whether we know it or not. I have a thing in the corner of the screen that says I'm a brand. Nigel, your brand is Mr. Whiskey NI. Tony, North Coast Drummer. We don't go out to a world market trying to sell our brand, for money. Yeah. But we are still something that we're still a brand, and we're hoping that people will trust that brand. And that's what it's all about.
And you're building your reputation to.
Yeah.
As you say, you're building your reputation to precede you, and so if people see you out there and you've said something, they know they can trust what you've said is, as true as it can be.
Sorry, multi-mission. That was a very cheeky comment, Benno. You'll get sent to the naughty step, sir. So, well, let's then get back to whiskey. Are there brands? Do these brands, and are we? Because the other, there's a few out there that it can go both ways. The likes. So for every Springbank S, there's a Dalmore Stag. That it gets to that point where you don't even need to. If you just see that image, you just I'm out. Thanks. It's.
Yeah, it's funny how your outlook on it evolves too, because when I first got into whiskey, Dalmore and the Stag in the bottle was one of the brands I sort of chased at the start. But for me, it has to be pretty much the full package, or at least a few different elements to get me hooked. So as soon as I got the colour and then all the rest, it started to fade away.
So a nice picture's just not enough.
No.
I think at this point, the brand is more aimed at the novices of it, the people who are just sort of, every now and again having a whiskey, not really interested, just having a wee drink now and again. But for the likes of us who are interested in it, the brand just disappears, and it's the quality of the product and the word of mouth from other people telling you this is a good one, try this, or just knowing a wee bit about the distillery and just past experience with other different bottles and different expressions.
Agreed. So is there anything, Nigel, is there anything, now I do have to ask, and you can't tell me that I didn't set you up for this, but are there any for either of you that are glaringly, I mean, I did the Bushmills there, that just winds me up. Why they've got three different bottle shapes, and a bottle shape still means a lot to. Now this is the thing, if you are trying to sell your product, you did say there, Nigel, with Bushmills, and you're 100% right. If you are trying to sell your product, what's the point in firing, as I say, wildly all over the place and having, different
I think
shapes?
they're probably trying to go for different markets and whatnot now. For like, I know it's different brand, but like Purge, like their old style bottles, I far rather had them comparing to their new style bottles.
Well,
but apparently, like they're designed to set up to be more appealing to the American market. And
while we're on the subject, then, the Pars Gold label. I brought this. I dug this bottle out, and it's pretty plain to see. It says on it, Pars Gold label. It's, you can't deny it. Then, now, this also says Pars Gold label on it. That's the distiller's cut, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
It's the only way I can put it. Where somebody signed off on that and said it was a good idea. Like,
yeah, but I think I heard somebody saying one time that it's same for the American market. They're trying to bring them over towards Pars, and it's got the wee knurl at the top for like cocktails. So like people making cocktails and grab it and swing it and whatnot. And there's a wee ledge around the top, so you can grab it.
Well, I'm going to ask anybody from America that's in the chat, just out of curiosity, what they think. And I do hear it an awful lot. It looks like a gin bottle. Yeah. It's more just the fact that this was an elegant thing.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that Pars, well, it's not even being convinced. I know for a fact that the Pars brand is struggling a bit. Middleton don't really know what to do with it. That didn't help. I'm convinced of it. That was...
I think you're trying to appeal to a younger market as well. Like, I think Pars was seen as an old man's drink, and as opposed to that sort of elegant shaped bottle sitting in the corner of an old man's pub. Whereas if they've revived it now with the stubbier bottle with the big, big P and the red diamonds standing out, that's more to grab the young people's attention sitting in the pubs and, or in a club or whatnot. What's that there? There's a big P. Give me one of them.
Frank said it here, and he's right. And Frank sort of pretty much nailed it here. Anyway, for me, branding is for recognizing in a distinctive way, and that's the thing. I had people come in to the shop. I did say I was going to use earlier this week. Ladies looking for Pars Gold label, and I went, "That's it." And they went, "No, that's not it." And I says, "It is. It says on it Pars Gold label." And could I convince them? And that's the stupid thing about it. It's why did they do this? It's at least if you're going to do that, have a gold label. At least if you're going to make your bottle that shape, at least keep the label gold. Nigel looks.
You've such a trusting face too, Jim.
I thought Nigel was a way to get something there. He's annoyed me, or he's annoyed him.
Like, this is the I don't see where's my camera at. That's the older version.
It is
the Pars Gold label.
It is,
and then so that's evolved from that.
Yeah.
To that.
And there's one before that one that you have as well, Nigel. It's
but they're obviously going down a certain path there. Like, it was evolving slightly.
Yeah, every one of them is a label.
Yeah, and then you end up with that monstrosity.
What I will say is, I was, as I said, I do have a beef about things like that. I hadn't intended to sort of point the finger at certain brands tonight, but it's very difficult when it comes to marketing to not point the finger, because there's some of them, to me, just, it's not a case of doing it right or wrong. And I will be picking one later that I think I've done it right. It's more a fact of them just what the hell, especially the likes of that Pars. It's just what the hell, what. Yeah. I don't get it. If the bottle was maybe a slightly different shape, but that label, yes. If the label was gold and that bottle shape, yes. I'm nitpicking, I know, but at the same time, I just don't get it.
You can see how each change sort of tied in with the previous one, but to go to
Small
that
steps.
extreme, yeah.
But sorry, there's a few more people jumped in there. Cheesemeister 66, good to see you in, Stephen. How are you, buddy? Billy Boy, Cheech, and Sugar Kitty, I missed. Gents, I'm going to put you in the background, and just because, and I'll bring in the next couple of people because you have come. I'm just going to bring you in on Tuesday night. How's that sound? And we'll get through this because it's only marketing. That's all it is.
Brandon.
And I'll speak to you. I'll bring you all in later. Tony, you can run off and put on your McConnell's jacket again. I'll see you later, boys.
Okay.
So that's, yes, marketing. And as I said, I hadn't really intended to point the finger at certain brands, but I mean, what do you do? It's really, it's all you can do. And I'm sipping on something slightly different here, and I'll speak to them in a minute. I'll speak about them in a minute. Fernando's in as well. How are you feeling? And what I'm sipping on, I'd forgotten how good it was. So let's bring in the next couple of guests. As usual, I'll not tell them who's coming in next because it makes it more fun for me. So let's bring in Drew and Graham. How are you, gentlemen?
All right.
Good to see you. So, so there's more than I thought there was. I was thinking there was only 7 Highlands in the night before.
There's more.
Speaking of branding, yeah.
So, gentlemen, and I know Drew, you're another one who texted me, or actually both of you messaged me earlier whenever we were chatting about this, and both of you said, "I don't care about branding," and you're right to not care about branding in that way. And that what matters when we're talking about caring about branding, we're talking about the whiskey. So it's the whiskey that matters. However, as I was saying earlier on about the beer one, the Chieftain beer, it proved there that his branding let him down. So that would nearly suggest that we also, as much as it's the whiskey's what matters in our case, but were it not for the branding, and I suppose if you think about it, if we're not for the branding, we wouldn't necessarily be drawn to it in the first place. Would it be right?
I can see where you come from, yeah. I can understand that. Walk past proper 12 all the time. It doesn't even faze me.
We don't speak those words around here.
Yeah. That's a point for the swear jar.
But I think it needs. I think some of them need something. And I mean, once again, Graham, you are a bit like myself. You're a brand. Whiskey Works is a brand. Drew, I mean, the thing is, Drew, we know you. We just know you as Drew. But the thing about it is, if there was 40 other Drews in the whiskey community who were in the same, you would still be Drew from AZ. You know, do you know what I mean? So it is almost a brand at that point where you become a standout. Yeah, sorry, I almost lost myself there.
Yeah, I know we were talking earlier in the chat about the fact that like Graham and I don't really worry about the brands as much as the research and the curiosity and the finding something new that we would like and the people that we trust. I think Lee J mentioned, it's all about the people that you value their opinion. And I think for me, branding won't necessarily get that first purchase from me, but it could certainly keep a purchase, recurring purchases from the brand and how the brand behaves. Because I think I mentioned, they had to stand behind their product. And so that means a lot to me. I think a brand that I have a lot of confidence in. I maybe give them the benefit of the doubt if I have a bad bottle or a release that maybe I don't really warm to. It's not defective, but it's just something that maybe hit them or missed the mark with me. I will keep coming back to a brand that I have confidence in, that's got a quality reputation and all the other things that we look for. So it maybe helps keep business, but not necessarily attract it for me. It's just my perspective, at least.
No, agreed. And Whiskey with Molly Ben says, fun fact there, Ben, you've got too much time in your hands, fella. There are 17.14 people named Drew for every 100,000 Americans. So, no, he didn't. But that was just America. He didn't go for Arizona. And I was actually Nigel mentioned a brand, named the company to me earlier on, and it was one that I had to. And yet again, I almost feel guilty when I mention their name now, for the simple fact that I almost feel like as if I'm just kissing up to them now, but I'm not. And it's Loch Lomond. Now, Loch Lomond have actually changed their branding on the QT. If I think would actually be the easiest way to say it, because they not so long ago, Loch Lomond branding was like this, which isn't that different from this, but it did change. So they dropped the black from behind the label. They went with this. The actual promotion's slightly different. Now that happened, as I said, on the QT. Then they and I don't care what anybody says, and it's not me just going, I like Loch Lomond. I do like Loch Lomond, but they changed from this shape of bottle recently to this, and I think this is class. I don't know why. There's just something about this that I absolutely love. It's not the labeling necessarily. I just love the bottle. I love the shape of the bottle. I just think it's chunky. It's almost, it goes as far as to say cute. And I do like it's just got something. Now that's something. The reason I brought that up was that's what we were discussing with Nigel and Tony. That step changes. If you do a step change in your branding, people won't notice the same. If you go from this to this, it's hard to not notice the difference. So the thing is, as you're saying there, Drew, we buy into a brand. That's all right. I keep telling people that when I'm selling John's Lane, which I do, because people ask me what should I buy, and I just tell them all, buy John's Lane. It's but I'm looking at the bottle and going, but don't pay any attention to that bottle. It's the whiskey that matters. And when you're trying to sell people a new brand, which is new to them, this is the thing. It's if we're trying to appeal to a market, to people who want to spend $20, $30, £25 on a bottle of whiskey, and we're saying, right, well, let's appeal to you here and say, look, if you want something really good here, step up the price. I'll get you something good. And then but you're pointing at something that doesn't look appealing. It's very difficult then if the branding isn't right. And this is the thing, we are the ones. We don't need to be convinced, because we rely on each other. You said, both of you guys said it. Yeah. Lee J has already said it, as you said in the chat. And this is why, and I've said this before, whenever it comes to budget, even when we're all limited to how much we can spend. So we rely on each other. It doesn't matter what the branding is then. You're not going to tell me you should try this whiskey and I'm going to go, I don't like the look of the label. Probably more likely to say I don't like the brand ambassador. Would I be right?
Yeah, pretty spot on, I'd say.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
and I mean, if they, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's what I'm sipping, by the way. I forgot what I poured, and it's the Loch Lomond Denchmore, and I've forgotten how good it was.
I went for
Sorry, you were saying?
You know, if they did a fundamental change in the whiskey, like if they decided that everything was going to be 40%, and all of a sudden, you know, nothing stronger than 40%, and it was going to be sold in 50 CL bottles at the same price or something, then, I mean, those are some pretty massive changes that would cause me to move away from a brand, regardless of whether I really liked the taste of the whiskey, and whether I had a dozen bottles in my cabinet of it, it would kind of be hard for me to stick with them. But you know, I think we talked about it. It's really all about the taste, and you know, the whiskey, the product itself is still solid. You know, that's enough for me. I mean, Graham could be blending stuff in his garage, and if you said it was good, I'd be in. It doesn't have to be, you know, from a huge company. He is.
I have about 6 bottles here going at the minute. It's ridiculous. Actually ridiculous.
Yeah, so you know, it's more about the end product and whether we like it, I think.
Graham, you actually had a few that you picked out. Did you know that you reckoned were sort of stand out one way or another?
More in the eye-catching kind of way, I suppose. Like the labels, but if you know what's behind it, there was Dunkel's, Springbank, and Ardent American.
Well, funny, and this was one actually I forgot. I'd forgotten it set slide aside for this because the first one you mentioned was Dunkel's, and something that is happening. Well, I was going to say more so in Irish whiskey, but it's completely in Irish whiskey. I don't think it's happening in Scotch whiskey or any of the other ones, any of the other countries really in the world. Certainly, what I know anyway, is that they're basically people buying up names, and which is fair enough. Buy up the name of an old whiskey, use that, and I agree as long as you're respectful to the old brand. And you mentioned one there, and it's Dunkel's. I took this picture earlier on, and I thought it fell well into this subject. The bottle on the left is an old Dunkel's bottle. That's probably circa 1920, certainly into the, wouldn't be much later than the early 1930s. So you're getting on to a bottle that's 100 years old there.
How did Billy let you touch that bottle?
Well, he doesn't know what I'm
talking
about. So that's the bottle on the right is a new Dunkel's 12-year-old. Now the thing about it is, somebody, and this is the bit that amazes me. Somebody, and I know who, his name is Mark Thompson. And don't get me wrong, lovely guy, absolutely bang up chap. Designed the new label. I would imagine Mark was probably paid quite a bit of money. And I'm not going. I don't want to say too much for the simple fact that he is a nice guy, and I don't want to rub him up the wrong way. But his photocopier was damn good. That's the way I look at that. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a brighter thing and all that there, but it's almost a direct copy of the original. And I would imagine he was paid an awful lot of money for his design, which, as I said, to me, is pretty much a direct copy of the old original one.
But then he darkened the pack down for the cask strength.
And then they changed the colors. They basically just changed the colors on it for the different. But I mean, you know, I'm sorry, as I say, lovely and all that there. It's just, to me, a very, very close copy, but very respectful of the original. and it'd be different if they just took it and flew wildly at it and did their own thing. That would be, to me, that would be much worse. So there you are. Anyway, gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'll put yous in the background. I'll bring in the next couple of guests, and sure, I'll bring, as I said, I'll bring you on at the end, as I always do. We'll give this subject one good final kicking right before we go. Gents, thank you very much. Speak to you soon.
Take it easy.
Yes. So that's a bit more chat about, and it's still branding different, but not by very much. So let's bring in my final two guests. They were late to the party. I noticed people think I don't see who's coming in, so they were late, so I kept them to the end. Let's bring them in. We have Lee J and I can't get him unmuted. Al, you must have. Did you mute yourself, Al? Ah, there we go. There he is. How you keeping, gents?
Evening. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Very good. Al, my friend, I haven't been speaking to you in a while. It's very good to see you with a glass in your hand. I hope you're keeping well.
I'm not too bad. I'm getting there. You know, a few changes in medication and whatnot, and new liquid oxygen. So when I'm filling up my new flask, it looks like a scene out of Breaking Bad.
Well, listen, as I say, it's brilliant to see you. And Lee J, you, as always, haven't got a chance to speak to you guys at all because you were late, as I said. But I mean, we'll let you away with that. We will let you away with that. So, branding, gentlemen, anything to add? No, right, that'll do. Move on.
But I asked a question in the live chat about Highland Park, and when I started with the whiskey, started following it, it was only the Viking stuff that they started doing that I was aware of. It wasn't until later that I found out that Highland Park had done St. Cal. So I asked, had anyone changed? And Jimmy Legg said they've lost him as a customer because of the change in the branding.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've only known it as the Viking branding myself. I don't know if the liquid had changed or it's just the branding.
Well, there you go. Well, there's a prime example of what's happened and what we were discussing. I mean, you know, so there's somebody that lost a customer as a result. And the thing is, Jimmy, don't hate me. I do quite like the Viking thing. Well, I've got a bottle of 12-year-old tucked away in my cabinet here somewhere. I don't buy Highland Park because in order for you to get away from that sort of 40%, and it's to get up through it all, you have to spend a lot of money to get up anywhere in their range. So I just won't spend that sort of money. But that's why I don't buy Highland Park. But the branding side of Highland Park never would have, you know, upset me that much. I do quite like the bottle thing. It's personal. As I said, Johnny, don't hate me. You all right there, Lee J?
Al.
Yeah, the oxygen for Lee J there.
I have a few cylinders here. But I'm sure after all, Jim, you do look like a Viking, so that's probably why you like it so much in the brand. But I think the branding thing in general, initially, it's different from the beginner to the seasoned drinker, because good branding will maybe draw somebody in that doesn't really know a whole big pile about the whiskey. You know, like one of the local off-license owner I spoke to said that when some, especially Americans, come in, they're looking for Irish whiskey, well, damn, you're always up for the Saxton because of the shape of the bottle, and it just stands out. And that, well, after that, then it depends on the quality of the liquid, whether the person's going to stay with that brand or not. And something like that catches the eye will draw you in. But if the liquid's not up to it, then you're not going to get ongoing custom. You're just going to get the new drinker. Whereas us seasoned drinkers, you'll get maybe drawn in by a brand, but after a while, it becomes a wee bit less important because, as you say, we're all there working for each other, and word of mouth comes into play, and then you get used to, drinking something different that you never would have thought of before.
The thing is too, it's sorry, just while you hit on it there, while I remember, it's the new brands too, and Graham said it, but Art American, he mentioned it, and it's actually linked me in and reminded me to bring in another. These are, I was saying about respecting brands, and it's new brands bringing in old brands, and I'm back to Irish whiskey simply because it's an Irish whiskey shop, but McConnell's, who we all know quite well, and Nigel's wearing the hoodie there tonight, just wearing their badge of honor. And yet again, I took this today. That's an original bottle of McConnell's from Cromac Distillery, and I think yet again they've respected the brand quite well, to actually down to the point where they've left. They never used McConnell's, never adopted the E in whiskey, and so the new McConnell's have decided the same. They'll not put the E in there. And another one more, just while I had it on there. This, and I'm doing a bit. It's not a sales pitch, but there's a ball that you will never, or not very often, see in the wild again. A red spot from Mitchell's. That's a very, very old bottle we have in our collection. Once again, Graham said it. How am I allowed to touch this stuff? Well, when nobody's looking, I can do what I want. And to me, it's respecting that brand. And the thing is, to me, the spots here, and Mitchell's as it still is, haven't broke away too far. They haven't gone daft and made a whole mockery of the thing. And it's just, to me, that's what it's all about. If you're going to use an old name, if you're going to bring a name back, at least respect that brand and make it look good. Make it look. Now, the thing is,
isn't it? If people know of that brand, they're going to look for something that resembles the original one if they're bringing it back, surely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it was important about what you were saying there too, about especially the new brands coming onto the market. They're all vying for that space. They're all vying for the custom, and they need to come out with something that catches the eye as well. And then taking into account the spot whiskies, I think that they would be taken to the next level because it's a very simple concept, but because of the colouring, you know what age the whiskey is. So yeah, you're just automatically going there and blue, green, yellow, red, what the ages are, and it just does stand out as well.
No, agreed. And the thing is to say that Al, you sort of nailed it there, and I think it's pretty much the feeling of the night that generally we don't care about branding. Now the thing is, and it's Graham, I said earlier, nailed it and hit it with the Art American. Rassay is another one. These new distilleries, I love Rassay's branding. It's I haven't actually went to the effort of buying a bottle of it yet, but I think what they've done, it's something new. The bottle is sort of getting away from Irish whiskey and into Scotch whiskey. Rassay, what does he call them? Who did? Oh, they're a Lowland distillery. Lindor's was another one. Sorry, just thinking about that. So these are Man of Swords. Who was it did Man of Swords? Can't remember what come to them. But they're and the thing is, if they weren't caring about the branding, if they weren't trying to get the crowd to jump in, they wouldn't be going. They wouldn't be Annandale. Sorry, Whiskey with Molly had it. Annandale, Man of Words, Man of Swords. If you'd seen the branding that they did on their single cast stuff, it's mental, and they're charging for it. But they didn't do that. based on their spirit, and just you can't go in with that Springbank Glengyle attitude and go, well, it doesn't matter whether we sell it in a box, it doesn't matter if our label's got any colour in it or not. People will buy it based on our liquid. You only buy it based on the liquid after you know what the liquid's like, and you only know what the liquid's like when your eyes have bought the bottle in the first place. I don't care what anybody says, we still buy with our eye first when it's something that we don't know about. If you know, it's all right us saying earlier on there about how we rely on each other, and we do rely on each other, but somebody has to make that step first. Somebody has to be at the head of the charge to say, I'm going to buy that bottle, and then I'll tell other people about it, whether it be good or bad.
Yeah, sorry. With the bottle, because going back to what Drew said about the small 500, Killowen has got a massive, for such a young distillery, a massive following already, and he's doing well in America. But the bottle isn't anything to look at. It's not like a mass. It's just little Killowen, loads of info, plain as can be. But the liquid inside, even though it's not, is it right? Not really his yet. He's getting there, isn't he? But
the thing was, Lee J, you nailed it there, mate. You really did, because, and even he did. He has released his own now. Brendan has released his own. He's released three. He's released 3 casks, and the branding in them is atrocious. It's the thing is, the bottle's nice, but then he's got this open box with an elastic band around it. What the hell's that about? Like, you know, I don't get that at all. And it's not for me to question Brendan about that, but I think it's an awful idea. But it's like Arden American. It's like these new ones that he built that brand up based on somebody else's spirit and made it. Fair play to Brendan there, but I'm so glad you picked up on that one, EJ.
Because he's working hard. I follow him on social, and he's him and one other chap helps him out, and he's built it up. He's doing well. He's working hard. But that's the word of mouth. That's not one that you'd see scrolling through anything on the online shops. Oh, that looks interesting, because it's not. It doesn't look like a whiskey bottle. But it's the word of mouth that once that liquid has been tried, they go out looking for it then.
Something else to remember here, and this has to always hang around in the background where Irish whiskey is concerned. Al, you know this. You probably know this as well as I do, if not better. Where the American market's concerned, to a certain extent, sometimes we don't even have to try. You could bang anything out, put a green label on it, say it's Irish whiskey, and people will buy it in America. Now, that's not to take away from what Brendan's done by any means. That's not to take away from a lot of what and the only reason I know this is that when I have Americans in the shop, they pretty much tell me that. You know, we look at Chicago, there's more Irish people in Chicago than there is in Ireland. And then Boston, there's more Irish people in Boston than there is in Ireland, you know. So like branding at that point doesn't make a difference. These people will just buy Irish whiskey for the simple fact that we don't like Scotch because it's too smoky. And that is
you get that a lot from the
that's it.
Yeah,
there's no two ways about it. I don't like Scotch. It's too smoky. And that's big.
There we go. It's the
but Brendan, he's built up a big cult following. So he has, and then the word of mouth obviously has got around because what he's been doing has worked in terms of, right, not obviously his own stuff, but what he's done with the stuff. And he's done a lot of experimental things. It's worked. He's also good on the social media. And unlike me, he would speak his mind, you know.
The thing is, too, be it his own stuff or not, he still had a distillery.
Yeah.
And he had a distillery from day one that you could put a pin in on a map and go, there's where my distillery is. And it's the size of this room. I've been in it. It's a beautiful thing. But it's just, and that to me still means a lot. If a brand is not just a label, it's not just a picture, it's not just a letter, it's everything that's in there behind it, and something that, as I said earlier, you can hang your coat on and say, you know, I'll follow these guys, I'll stick with them because they've done well. Drew actually said something to me privately earlier about some independent bottlers in Scotland. And funny, I'll not name, he sort of slipped away from them for the simple fact that he just lost faith in them. That can happen. And there's no, to me, the way I look at that is there's absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. You can lose faith in the brand that you have grown with. Scotch whiskey in general is a brand to me. And I use it like that sometimes when I'm talking to people. And I say, my heart lies in Scotch whiskey rather than Irish whiskey. And that's me then sort of making these things, all, you know, Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, Japanese, American, etc., etc. And holding them, it's where your heart lies. It's what you can trust, what you can believe in. Nigel said it to me earlier about Loch Lomond. I just trust Loch Lomond. That doesn't mean that I've enjoyed everything that they put out. As a matter of fact, and I could say the same when I'm looking over my shoulder at Springbank, I could probably number more expressions from Springbank that I've disliked than those that I've liked. And the same could maybe go for Loch Lomond, but it's what interests me and the ones that I really do like that keeps me coming back for more.
Mm-hmm. But then that's not the branding, that's the liquid inside.
Damn it.
You were saying I didn't notice until you pointed it out with the Loch Lomond, the little step changes. Didn't notice. You know,
and I think the fact that if you look at Loch Lomond, Lee, they never once have mentioned it, as in there's some of them are very loud about their brand changes. It's like, look what we've done. You know, it's just, it's all their advertising changes and everything. Whereas Loch Lomond has just been, they've said nothing. It's never been mentioned once. It's just been introduced. And the thing is, they released the Cooper's Choice and the whose else's choice was it? The Cleaner's Choice or something? Can't remember. It was somebody that worked in the distillery. They released them recently, and they were still in that shape bottle. And they were, you know, so they still seem to be working off old branding. So it doesn't seem to matter to them, you know, and which is fair enough then. If you haven't made a big, bold statement about our branding has changed, then nobody notices. This one is the one that annoys me most out of them all. Weirdly, even that Powers that I talked about, this galls me most for the simple fact that their blends still come in this shape ball and continue to come in this shape ball. Their single malts come in this shape ball up until a point where they get too expensive, and then they come in a different bottle again. And it's just like, well, could you not just make your bloody minds up and stick to a ball? You know.
Maybe that's just their way of telling us, hey, you see a bottle this shape, you ain't buying it.
Pretty much, Al. I think you're right.
It's all money, isn't it? You say, like you were saying with the Springbank and Argyle, they're all across their range. It's all in Kilkerran, same bottle, just different on the front, isn't it?
That's quite funny. That it still makes me laugh. That I have it over my shoulder here. The Campbelltown lock. The fact that it says Springbank on the bottle.
I got that.
Blend is supposed to have Larg or Glen Scotia in it as well. It's just like, boys, you're not only wearing your heart on your sleeve, but you're wearing your name on your label or on your bottle. Like, you couldn't hide that. So, that was a bit daft. Listen, I'm going to bring everybody back in again. Why not? It's going to get pretty crowded in here. It's not like as if there's a quiz around, because there's not. Tony, you were on anyway. I thought I had you muted. Damn it, you wanted the whole time.
Evening, gents.
Hello.
See what happens whenever you come late to the party, you miss everything.
Oh, fashionably late, mate.
So I think we pretty much some branding up there anyway that it means nothing to us. However, if it all came in the same bottle, I think we would think differently of it. I think we would. I think it requires something. I think that branding's all right, but when they get it wrong, then we're not slow about telling them they've got it wrong. I'm certain no anyway. I don't know what the rest of you's like, but
You have more chance of telling them, Jim, with the shop, and you're seeing the brand ambassadors and stuff more than me.
I'm as shy as hell. I wouldn't tell them that. The thing about it, Tony, is that was something that we didn't mention actually, and it was actually a subject that I wanted to touch on here. Was the brand ambassador thing as well? That if you buy into that, if you become, I remember thinking whenever I started down this path very early on, brand ambassador seems like a fantastic job. I know quite a few brand ambassadors now, and no, I wouldn't do it for a pension anymore for the simple fact that you're tied to that brand. You dare not say anything bad about that brand. You dare not go raving about other brands and about how good they are. Now, the thing is, the brand ambassadors can all party together. You guys, Tony and Nigel, Tony and Graham were a thing last week that which involved, what was it, 4 or 5 different brand ambassadors,
brand,
all working together. And the thing about it is, all of those people that were there know each other. They all know their brands. I couldn't do it. Yeah. I definitely couldn't do it. I couldn't work to one brand and say, especially, I mean, you need to be
brainwashed.
Glowing about that. You need to be what? Sorry.
Brainwashed.
You do. That's the thing. And you need to be glowing about that all the time. Yeah. It's just your brand, and that you have to sell it. And this is, I couldn't do that. I don't think I could do it.
Also, it's about all the running about, all the promotions, going to all the different events. It's really like your life is not your own. You're just, right, we're doing this thing, you need to be there. And it's not just 9 to 5, it's all bloody hours, in the evening. And maybe you've worked all day doing something, and then you've got to go and meet a bunch of Hallions like us at the evening time for a drinking session. I couldn't do it either. But I certainly couldn't now. Even before, I don't think it would want to.
See,
it's definitely a young man's game.
See, this is where our side's better. Oh,
aye. Definitely.
No, it's definitely. I couldn't do it, and as I say, sure, it's easier to do what we're doing. And I mean, Al, Lee J, Graham, Tony, Nigel, Drew, we're free to talk about whatever whiskey we want. We're free to talk about branding here. We couldn't do this if you're tied to a brand. And the thing is, we know that there's people. What is he? Kirsty from. Is she Glen Murray? Is it Kirsty Core? Anyway, I think it's Kirsty Core. Maybe I'm wrong. Michael, Henry, etc. People like that. People that we know that aren't brand ambassadors. But they work for distilleries, and it's quite weird how they seem free to walk around talking about other whiskies and other distilleries that they love. But it's different when you're a brand ambassador. A brand ambassador is, and they dare not, as I said, walk away and talk about somebody else's
Well, no, yeah, it wouldn't be a very good job if they did, would they? They'd be
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we know them. We've met them. We've been there. We've chatted to these people, and we're sort of I think maybe I'm just speaking personally, but I think we all feel the same. That we all want to sort of stray and go, but this reminds me of something that I had over there. That sort of, and they're going, no, ours is much better. That this is the best one of them all. Try this, and let me tell you, it's one thing being in Scotland doing that. It's another thing over here when there's 4 or 5 of them and all their spirits coming from the same bloody place. and they're going, but mine's better than his. And you're going, well, it came from the same place. But we did this to it. Like, well,
So did they.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except they done it right.
Yeah. And Jim, I think, I was kind of trying to reflect on whether branding made a difference to me. And I think I said earlier in the chat before the show that I feel like it does make a difference to me in other products. Like if I'm trying to find a pair of shoes that fit, that, I like, and once I find a brand, I stick with the brand and I don't go keep exploring. And, it's kind of a hassle. And I get through the hassle of finding the one that works and I stay there. On whiskey, it's different. It's like the pleasure is keeping the search going and keeping the journey going. If I was approaching it the same way, I would have stopped at Bunnahabhain, and that's all I'd have in my cabinet. I wouldn't have all these other wonderful whiskeys. So it's a different approach. I think it's pleasure versus necessity for me.
But that's that is actually a very good point, Drew, because I never actually thought about it like that. And we're all I used to look at I used to watch reviewers and see, you could always see their cabinets in the background, and I was looking at them and going, why have they got 6 bottles of Bunnahabhain? And why would you have that? I used, why would you not just have one of each? And for a long time, that was the way my cabinets went. It was one of each of this, because I thought to myself, I couldn't. There's no way I could narrow myself down to one and spend all of my money on that one distillery. And then all of a sudden, you discover that you've got 6 of one distillery there because you just like it so much. And it is actually baffling to me. I counted one day, and this sounds daft, but I counted, and and I had 16 Loch Lomond balls in my cabinet, and that's just Loch Lomond. That's not Glen Scotia, and else, and it's not the blends. It's not the single grains. It's just Loch Lomond single malts. And it was like, what happened? I don't know. How did I end up with that many of them? I was going to say without even realizing it, but they're sort of hard to spot, and that's just faith in a brand.
Yeah.
And as I said, and the thing is, I've realised now that I've got about 5 of these unopened. That's something that is also a bit bizarre. And it's just, that's me just buying because I want they can't release something that I don't want to buy unless it's 47 years old, obviously. I'm not going to.
We are still coming together for that one, aren't we? Yeah, no.
Yeah, of course. Guys, we'll talk about it after. And it's sort of, I do find it a bit embarrassing, actually, to an extent. And it's just, I don't know why. I feel it embarrassing, but it's just one of those things that I don't like to. I don't necessarily like to stick to one thing, but
you don't like all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, well put, Tony. Well put. That's the term I was looking for.
Talking about branding in the same way as Drew's talking about not wanting to keep to one distillery, a brand I've fell in with and follies like most of these. And it's mainly for that reason, is because it's not just one distillery type.
And the thing about it is, to tell me I'm wrong here, but it looks appealing.
Yeah.
SMWS bottles look appealing. They are eye-catching. The thing about it is, I actually would go one step further now. If I was SMWS and not have a code, I'd just go, there you go. Here's our next bottle. We've got 6 bottles out. Buy them if you want. And I guarantee you that we would.
Yeah.
Or Jim,
And
you
the
could
thing
just not cheat and just.
We would probably shut up. We would probably we would probably fire a bit more
Where's the
wildly
fun
too.
in that? Where's the fun?
It's
You got the transparency and secrecy at the same time, Jim. Dear God, man, you're going against your principles here.
I'll have a both ways.
Please. It's one of those things. Well, I needed to know what SMW, what these bottlings were, because it's just curiosity get the better of me, and I'm easy. But I think they've really nailed it with their.
Pretty sure you got me to look those codes up.
Sorry, Graham.
I'm pretty sure you got me to look those codes up for you.
No. Well, I probably did. Okay.
No, but I think the brand and the SMWS, especially if you've been into one of their venues and you see all the bottles lined up, and sort of makes it more appealing than even.
Oh, definitely does.
Yep, but it's another way of getting you to try new distilleries as well.
Yeah.
Because, after all, I got a couple of Balmanic expressions from the SMWS, and I would never have thought of even trying to get anything like that. But it sort of made me want to get even more of their expressions through the SMWS because I just enjoy them so much.
Yeah.
I just think, as I say, and funny, they were one of the whenever I was thinking about this in the background, they were one of the ones that I was thinking about, because I know how much all of us in here have enjoyed SMWS. And Drew, I know you had a bad good experience with them this week.
Yeah, they stand behind their product. I can add that as well, and that's another big thing for me. How many companies would get on the phone with you and say, "Hey, give me your thoughts on this whiskey." It's if it wasn't quite what you expected, I want to hear your thoughts. And I thought that was a nice personal touch, and they definitely stand behind their product. So, definitely a positive experience for me.
No, great. And as I say, the thing is about them, they were one of the ones that I had in the back of my head, that their branding just sells them. They look, you said it, Tony, put 3 bottles of SMWS together in your collection and they stand out. They just, because there's some sharp, some clean about them. But then and there was another one that I wanted to actually include in this, and I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick here, and I forgot about it. It was a new one from get their name right here, Jim. David and Short Cross. I had to remember that. And Short Cross have released a couple of cheaper entry level blends here in the north. Well, to the open market, as far as I know. And yet again, they're one of these ones that, unless you look very close, you wouldn't see that it says Short Cross on it. It's a very small brand. It's just a beautiful bit of art. The bottling itself, it's a lovely white seal and bright labels, and that's one of those things that I wish I actually had photographs here, and I forgot to actually do it. But to me, it's good branding. It's simple yet effective, and that's what matters. And it's the same with SMWS. It's the same with Springbank. It's the same. It doesn't need to be all bells and whistles. Dalmore, I'm convinced, are selling their product based on the fact that they've got a nice silver deer on their bottle, and they've put so much brown colouring into it that it's cost them a bloody fortune. That and it's just like, well, stop charging us there. Cut down on your branding, and we'll get into the subject of marketing in the next time, where we'll probably repeat an awful lot of what was said tonight. But that's what would cut back on that, and let us rely on a good product, and forget about the amount of branding that went into it. Or at least if you've already, if you've established your brand and we're already there, then start and pull back on it a wee bit. I don't know.
There's a good interview on the who is it? There's a podcast, I can't remember who it is, but they had an interview with the Dalmore, and it's mostly because of the history that they got the 12-point stag on it, and the whiskey. It just seems strange that they got a couple that are really basic 40%ers, nothing really special, and it's only where the price jumps up to like the silly money, but they're not, and they don't seem to be wanting. They won't be doing single cast very often, and they're just happy to push out mass quantities at, I don't know if they look in and see if the customers at the end, they're looking at what people are saying about them, because they're just shipping it out across the world, and sort of
they're not for us, basically. They're another prime example of a distillery who are not for us, the whiskey enthusiast. We'll buy one,
a fashionable brand for people who want to be for posers.
He says there in front of his lamp.
Yeah.
No, you're right, Nigel. That's the thing. And if anybody looked like a poser now, I mean, but no, you're right, mate. That's the thing. They're not. You become a whiskey enthusiast, and you very quickly leave all of those people behind, and we won't spend our money on them. It's pretty much that simple.
That's maybe why they throw the dram over the shoulder,
That's what I was going to say. It ends up in the carpet.
Up the whole bottle over the shoulder.
There was a friend of mine who's not.
Anyone you'd be throwing the bottle.
A friend of mine who's not technically into. He enjoys the whiskey, but he's not technically. And he discovered and sent me a video this morning of Richard Patterson, completely out of the blue. And he must have thought that I didn't know who Richard Patterson was. And I went back to him and gave him a bit of information on who Richard Patterson was. And I said exactly that. White and Mackay, Dalmore, any other product that they throws on the floor won't change the whiskey world. Throw it as much as it wants. It's not going to change our views on it.
Suddenly tell us that's where it belongs.
Exactly. Listen, gentlemen, I'm going to wrap this one up if you don't mind. I think, as I say, we've given branding a good battering. No doubt we'll probably go back and do it again at some point once I've forgotten about it. And we'll talk about. As I say, I think originally I was going to do branding and marketing, but I'm convinced it's two different things. Branding is just about that product. Here's our product. Marketing is the crap that they sell us based on that product. So we'll come in the next time. We'll talk about that. It's the stuff that we really hate, and
it's the stuff they trick you into buying the bottle.
Yeah, exactly, Tony.
We use only the finest grain, the locally sourced water. And this is the best you can get. They're hardly
give too much away here. You're going to ruin the next episode.
We're trying to keep this cheap for you, the consumers. So we went down the road and got the cheapest shite we could. They're not going to write that.
He had to get one in before. Jimmy Legg has added to the bottle fund. Jimmy is saying, can't wait to see you in the fall. Great fun hearing from everyone tonight. Jimmy, cheers, buddy. And yes, there's at least two of us here, Jimmy, who will be in Scotland in the fall to meet you up. So anyway, gentlemen, I will speak to you in a moment. Hang around, and we will put the world to rights for 5 minutes because I can't hang around too long. Until then, thank you very much for joining me, gents.
Cheers.
It was good to have you in. There was more of you in tonight than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to come up a bit short, but you all come in. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Jim.
I'll see you in a minute, guys. Cheers.
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 So, massive thank you as I get rid of them all for now to the Highland Battalion. There we go. Yes, that is branding. That is branding. But you know what? I don't like to, and this one's been sitting for a few weeks. I completely forgot I actually bought this ball. And I've been waving it about all evening. And I do like their new branding. The Loch Lomond. This one, this is the open special for this year. Sorry, I can't do that. That's just something I do. And I can't help myself. It's one of my little things, people. When I pop a cork, I do my own pop. It's I know. Yeah. So this is the 150th Rioja finish. I'm not going to break it into it right now and tell you what I think about it. But I will eventually. Thank you very much for joining me. Always appreciated. It really is. There was a good few of you in tonight, and I had a good old chin wag with the Highlands again. I've missed the Highlands. I haven't had them. I haven't been speaking to them for about 6 weeks. We do chat sort of in WhatsApp, etc. And as I said, there's a couple of you guys, and Neil couldn't make it tonight either. I'm trying to think I think that was everybody, Neil and a couple of other guys. But I do. It's good for me. It's good to catch up with these guys, and really, I'm catching up live. So that you're joining us in the bar, because this is the sort of crap we talk about in the bar when we catch up. So look, it was good to be back again. I'll be back in May. I'll be back for my patrons. I have to do something for my patrons soon, but that's chat for another time. I'll be back in May with let's talk about marketing. Unless anything changes between now and then, you wouldn't know what big news will come in between now and then. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always. It's good to see you, and I will see you soon again. Cheers.